All right. Joe Rogan is lib the fuck up. First and foremost, he pushes back on, I guess it says, minors should be forced to carry a rapist baby. By the way, being lib the fuck up is literally like just having at least a crumb of humanity left in you, okay? That's when I say Joe Rogan is lib the fuck up, I mean it like sarcastically, okay? So don't mistake that. I'm not being serious about that, obviously. Let's hear.
Women who have been raped, who should not have to fucking carry some rapist baby. There's women who have been sexually assaulted before the age of 14.
There's also, hold on though.
But hold on, don't stop me.
Okay.
That's real too. And we all have to agree. We have to agree on both of those things.
There are also, though, I'm not going to argue with you on that.
God damn.
That point, but I will say there are people who have been born of rape and are alive right now and are pro-life, and they go around speaking, talking about how I had a right to live, and they will go out there and make an argument, a pro-life case, and they're born of a rape.
You don't have a right to tell a 14-year-old girl she has to carry a rapist baby.
I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that's real.
Yeah, notice how he's not talking about the fucking mother in that situation. You know, the little girl. He's like, oh well, there's people who are like, I have a life to live. No, you don't. Like, no, you don't. That's not an argument you can make. That's fucking insane.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the right to tell my 14-year-old daughter she has to carry her rapist baby. You understand that?
To look that woman in the eye who was born of a rape.
Yo, I love when Republicans get that way because, like, Joe Rogan is, like, genuinely fucking agitated. Look at this.
Look that woman in the eye who was born of a rape.
Do you understand that? That's a 14-year-old child. If a 14-year-old child gets raped, you say that they have to carry that baby?
I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't think murder. I don't think murder is an answer to. I don't think murder fixes a rape.
That's awesome. That's great. But Joe Rogan also had a good guest on.
It's an honor to meet you, Derek. Especially after such
Josh Dubin and Derek Hamilton from the Innocence Project. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
Tell me your story. Like, what happened to you?
Well, thanks for having me, and Josh, thanks for the accolades. I was a 17-year-old kid running around Brooklyn at a time when Brooklyn was terrible, and I was a product of my environment. I was doing little robberies and little dumb stuff that adolescents do, and I got on the radar of the police department. They used to search me all the time, pat me down, throw me up on a car, regular stuff that happened in that community. One day, a man was killed about 5 a.m. by some older guys in the neighborhood. The police had the identification of their car. They called the guy in, and he somehow told them he rented me the car and that I was the one that brought the car back and told him that I had committed the crime and that I had shot the guy by accident. And that was my first real experience with the criminal justice system because it was a murder. I'm like, murder? I did a couple of robberies. I did some petty stuff, but murder, that's not me. So, what was amazing to me is, number one, nobody would have gave me their car at 17 years old, right? Any cop would have known that this guy wouldn't have gave me his car. But they arrested me and they charged me with murder. And I
wonder why the police... I wonder why the police did that. I can't for the life of me think of why the police would do that to a young black 17-year-old boy.
I was convicted by a jury because they admitted grand jury testimony of a witness who came before the court and said, I never seen this guy at all. The police made me lie in the grand jury and say that I seen this guy. I'm not testifying. I refuse to testify. I'm not going to get up there and perjure myself. The judge told the prosecutor that day that they was dismissing the case, that if they don't get another witness, this case is going out of here. Judge's name was Lombardo back then. This was 1983. I went back to Rikers Island that day. We came back the next day, and the judge said that he thought about this all night, and he felt that the only person would benefit from this witness not testifying would be me. Therefore, he was going to allow the prosecutor to admit their grand jury testimony as evidence in chief at my trial, and I would forfeit my right to confront the witness and let the jury hear the truth that she never saw the crime. So that was my first real experience. I was a young knucklehead. The lawyer that I had at the time, Candace Kurtz, said, look, young man, get your head out your ass and you better read these cases and you better see what's going on, like they're railroading you. She took the stand and told the judge what the witness told her. And I was convicted. I was sentenced to 25 years of life. And it was at that moment that I know that I had to study law, that I had to really dig deep in the books, and I did it. New York State, thank God, had a law library. They had all the books in the world. All you had to do was apply yourself. And I spent the next 5 and 6 years working on my case. In 1987, the appellate division in that case found that the judge had no evidence whatsoever.
I'm no advocate for Hammurabi shit, but, like, honestly, that judge should go to jail. Like, you know, if fair is fair. You go to jail. You go to jail for the duration.
That me or anybody acting on my behalf had threatened this witness, did anything improper. And that the judge was right. There was no evidence that can prove that. So they reversed the conviction, and I was able to get out of prison after 6.5 years. Unbeknownst to me, There was a rogue cop by the name of Louis Garcella who felt that I didn't do enough time for this conviction. He didn't like the appellate division decision. 8 months later, I was in New Haven, Connecticut at a unisex salon that I had owned at the time. He came in that store and arrested me, told me I was going back to Brooklyn for a murder. And I'm like, a murder? Like, this can't be true. Like, again? Like, you know, how many times has this happened? I went to New York. I was processed. About a year later, I went to trial. I was convicted. They brought a witness in by the name of Jude Smith, who said that she was present at the murder when her boyfriend was killed, that I was a gunman. I had a gun in my hand, and I shot this individual several times with this gun. But her original statement to the police said she wasn't there, that she never saw this crime. She was around the corner at a store. When she came back, her boyfriend was dead. The jury never heard that statement. But in any event, the ballistics evidence proved that this guy was shot with 2 different guns, that he wasn't shot in the building where she said he was shot at, but he was shot outside in the street. Despite this evidence, I was convicted. After I was convicted was when I learned that she had first told the cops at the crime scene she never saw the crime, but she had told it to a different detective. So I made a pro se motion to set aside the verdict. And in the motion, I argued that this detective that never came in that she gave the statement to could prove my innocence. And the judge ordered a hearing. For a year, he said, I can't give this guy a day in jail, let alone 15 years, which was the minimum. I want this witness to come back. The prosecutor said, I'm not calling her. And the judge said, if you don't call her back, this case is going to a new trial, right? They called her back, and she admitted that she never saw the crime, that the detective, Louis Garcella, told her what happened and told her that if she didn't get up here and say that I committed the crime, she was going to jail. She was on parole. Her boyfriend was a felon that just got out. She had kids. They said, you're going to jail. She said, what was I supposed to do? Here's the system telling me this, that if I don't come in and say this, I'm going to jail. And I came in and said it. The judge ruled a year later that, again, he felt that I was, he said there was a common thread of strings. I manipulated this evidence. Again, I called the detective. The detective came in and said exactly what the witness said, that she told him she didn't see the crime, that she was beat up and took to the priest and then told she was going to jail. And I had that jury.
Well, this case is more of a cop disliking him for various reasons. Oh, yeah, totally. It's just one cop. Let's not examine the system that has allowed one cop to be petty in this regard. Or let's not examine the system that allows a cop like that to continue operating. Let's just look at one cop. Yeah, just one bad apple.
You heard that, there'd have been different results. At the trial, they told the jury that her first statement was the most important statement in this case. And that when the police arrived on the scene, she didn't hesitate.
But even when a dude is describing every single aspect of a system that failed him, that unjustifiably took his freedom away, you're still like, well, I mean, I don't know. It was just a cop. The cop did this.
She said Derek Hamilton, somebody I know my entire life, committed the crime, which wasn't true. In fact, she said the truth, which she didn't see the crime, that she was somewhere else. I was sentenced to 25 years of life. I filed numerous post-conviction motions after post-conviction motions. Every time a judge gave me a hearing, every time he said he can throw the case out, every time he said he was troubled by this conviction, the prosecutor would come in and tell him I'm a bad guy, that this is not somebody you want to release, that, you know, they put imagined harms and make a judge think that I was the most terrible person in the world. And
multiple judges failed him. Prosecutors failed him. Well, not even failed him. Like, they unjustifiably kept him in detention. Multiple cops. He even has empathy for the fucking other person who offered false testimony. That's insane.
Time. I filed numerous motions, numerous post-convictions. I did everything you could imagine to prove my innocence, but to no avail. I began going to parole board around 2009. It was a very traumatic experience for me because at that time, the parole board wanted me to admit guilt, and I wasn't going to do that. I'm not going to come in and say I killed somebody I didn't kill. I'm not doing that. I don't care what you say, and I had to challenge them and fight them for 2 years. And then my family went out in protest, and we got a Daily News article put out that said that I would be free if the court would just basically give me justice. If they just give this guy a fair shot, he'd be home. So it changed the mentality of the parole board. They looked at all of my evidence, and they said, based on the evidence that you presented here, we believe in your innocence. Like, this evidence speaks for itself. Even the judge said you was innocent. I don't know what you're doing here all these years. And they released me. And at that point, I began a crusade. Because when I was in prison, there were several guys. We built something called the Act Your Innocence team. Guys who I was working in the law library, so I would read guys' case and check them out. So what I had to do was get families together, get people to come together and bring their families and say, look, let's send these people to City Hall. Let them know there's a lot of us in here. It's not just me. It's white, there's black, there's a bunch of us in here that got the same issue, that they're procedurally barring us. They're not looking at our case, they're just kicking it into the garbage. We don't want to hear it. Get out of here, right? Because they can. They had the power. So when we start bringing attention to these cases, it changed the whole dynamic. So when I got out, I joined that group, Family and Friends of the Romans Convictions. We had a PR guy by the name of Lonnie Sori who was helping us keep it together. And we just began blasting the prosecutors. We began protesting outside their offices and getting rid of them. The first one we was able to get rid of was Charles Hines in Brooklyn, the prosecutor that sent me to prison. We was able to remove him and put a progressive prosecutor in that agreed that he would look at these convictions if he was elected. So he got in, and in 2 years, he exonerated 22 people. And he found that there was a systemic racist problem in Brooklyn that was convicting the wrong people. Fortunately for me, the New York...
Oh, shit. I guess it wasn't. Oh, fuck. I guess it wasn't just one bad apple. I guess it was a couple bad apples.
Times reporter called me, and I believe it was 2000.
I need you to understand, that conviction or that investigation is an insane investigation to even conduct. You end up literally investigating the very same people that are the police end up policing the police, okay? Which is precisely why in so many of those circumstances, plenty of them get to have long and wonderful careers and get fat pensions by the end of it, okay? The idea that they actually concluded or conclusively found racism within the way that policing was occurring in this situation implies that it had gotten so out of fucking control that a larger federal agency or federal government had to step in and say, you got to stop, dude. What the fuck are you doing? You're doing too much racism. Not the level of racism that is allowed, where we can like kind of look the other way.
12. And they said, why are people afraid of the police? And I just said, are you kidding me? Why are they afraid of the police? And I told them names of guys that I knew that was in prison that this cop set up. And a lawyer had contacted me and said that he was working on a case which this cop framed another guy by the name of David Ranta. And he said, in 2 weeks, there's going to be an article in New York Times that exposed this cop. And I told the New York Times reporter that. And I said, look, in 2 weeks, if it comes out, you come back to me and I'll take you to these guys. And she came back, Frances Robert. She came back and I took her to these guys. She got the prosecutor to agree to look at 50 of these cops' cases, 50 of them. And, 20 was exonerated so far, those guys. And I was exonerated in 2015. In 2014, for the first time in New York history, the Appellate Division Second Department ruled in my case that a freestanding actual innocence claim can be recognized under post-conviction motion. And they said that anybody that's innocent, the courts could no longer procedurally bar you. They got to reach the merits of your contentions. They just can't say, well, you should have raised this before, or your lawyer failed to do this before, or you should have did. You got to reach the merits of it. Get to the bottom line. Is this guy innocent or not? And when they gave me that opinion, it kind of like in itself exonerated me because the prosecutor now had to hear my witnesses. I had alibis. I had police officers who said, look, this guy was in New Haven, Connecticut, not Brooklyn when this murder happened. We know because we seen him there. We was at a party with him. I had hotel receipts. I had many witnesses that could verify where I was at on a day in the town you care.
For the record, police or prosecutor misconduct is at the root of half of exoneration cases. At half. Specifically, just prosecutorial misconduct is 1 in 20, but when you add police misconduct into the matter, that's half. You understand? Fucking half, dude. That's insane. Those people should be going to jail. Like, we're not talking like a witness fucked up. We're not talking like, additional evidence came out. This is straight up like wrongly convicted black defendants were slightly more likely than whites to be victims of misconduct, especially in drug and murder investigations. Official misconduct.
Ash was murdered. The courts were just throwing that evidence in the garbage. We, in fact, proved who committed the crime. The real murderer was present when the cops arrived. He was on parole for manslaughter. They took his name down, but never even investigated who he was. So we had a lot of evidence. We had a witness who was there, who identified who was there, identified why the guy was shot. There was a 911 call that said 3 male blacks fleeing in the red car. He admitted they was in the red car. So there was just overwhelming evidence of my innocence, but courts was just throwing it in the garbage because of the prosecutor lied to them and said he's a bad guy. So my experiences taught me that, there's a lot of innocent people. I was in prison, man. Look, one thing about prison, and I tell people, they say, hey, everybody says they're innocent. That's not true, right? They may tell a lawyer that, but they're not going to tell a guy in the neighborhood with them that. I know you're guilty. I was with you. I know what you did. You told me. Everybody tells me. You're from the same neighborhoods. So it's a small minority of people that's in the law life.
By the way, this is part of the reason why I always laugh at motherfuckers who say, like, oh, Gavin Newsom is releasing 75,000 criminals into the streets tomorrow. Bro, you don't understand the process in which, like, there is a parole board that looks at your fucking good behavior. You don't know how many fucking awful situations you've had to dodge to even get to that level. Okay? You have no fucking idea. When you go into prison, you're automatically a criminal. Even if you went to prison under, improper filings or prosecutorial misconduct or whatever, it doesn't matter. You go into prison, now you're a criminal. You have to do crimes to survive in prison. Okay? That means you were able to dodge all of that despite of all of the, despite of your interest in surviving prison that causes you to do literal fucking crimes. Okay? You then get in front of a fucking parole board. You get in front of a fucking parole board and they still don't let you out.
Library every single day. If you go to the yard, guys is working out in the weight pile, right? They're playing basketball, but the innocent guys is in that law library every single day trying to find a way out. And that was me. Every single day. And I studied every book in there. I taught law classes, and I became very good at it. I mean, I was surprised. I went to college, right? When the lawyer gave me the first 2 cases and I read them, I was surprised how well I knew the cases. I was surprised how I comprehended them. And it was because of that that I kept going. And I found a civilian who liked me. He was working in the law library. And the first test I got was a 44. And he said, look, man, I'm not going to waste my time.
You got to explain what that is. What's a 44?
A 44 was my grade on the test. I took a test. The first test he gave me was on the Constitution of the United States. I had to learn the 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendment. And I failed. I was playing. And he said, look, you're not going to waste my time. You're smarter than that. He challenged me. Next time I came back, I got a 97. So from that point on, I just started studying. I start gravitating to the older guys that knew more than me because I was young. They was willing to teach me, and I was like a young sponge, and I just loved what I did. I became passionate about it, and that's why I'm here now.
Derek, what kind of repercussions are there for cops that do things like this?
None. I mean, in our case, the statute of limitations has ran out on this cop. And let me just tell you about this cop. He didn't just do it in the police department. He left the police department, went into the DOE, the Department of Education, and he did it there. He framed the guy in the DOE. They later found out the guy did nothing wrong. They had to reinstate him. This is just his nature and his character.
He just gets away with it?
He gets away.
What's his name?
Louis Scarcella.
And he's out there still?
He's out there. He's still getting a pension. The city is still paying this guy. We still got cases today that we are fighting in court for him. James Jenkins, Nelson Cruz. They still actual cases that we're litigating.
How many people do you think that guy wrongfully put in prison?
I'll tell you something that I didn't even tell you, Josh, about this one. And this guy.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, he is a retired detective for New York City Police Department who initially came to prominence during the crack epidemic of the 90s and 80s, earning frequent commendations before many of his investigations were overturned in the 2010s. Like he's got a fucking Wikipedia page for his misconduct.
Worked on over 200 cases. My father was killed in 1988. He was the detective on that case. And I'll tell you something about that. He said that one of the guys snatched a confession out of his hand and ate it. I didn't believe that. I said, as much as I want people who may be responsible for my father's death, I can't trust this guy. I can't take nothing he say to be truth, right? Just recently, that case was overturned. Samuel Edmondson case because of his sloppy police work. So he says 200 cases he worked on. I would like to believe at least half of those guys are innocent.
Well, a lot of them have been exonerated. How many Scarcella exonerations have there been?
20 to date. 20 to date.
How does a guy not just get locked up immediately for that?
Oh, I wonder how. Well, maybe it has something to do with the attitude that rich guys like you constantly fucking channel through massively popular media outlets about backing the blue and how difficult of a job the police have. And they're out there scaring the big bad guys, black guys specifically, that are breaking windows and rioting all the fucking time. Maybe the reason why they get away with this is because their entire purpose is to defend rich people against the scourge of poor people. Seems real difficult to frame hundreds of people. Is not. Not when the system allows it. Not when you get commendations for it. I don't really think Joe backs the blue that hard. Oh, come on, dude. Since COVID, since he moved to Austin, that motherfucker hasn't been backing the blue. He's been backing that ass directly into the blue cock, okay? Every day. God damn, dude. The only time he's like not backing the blue is when it was like, the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin case. That's it.
And when he testifies, he has 2 lawyers with him now, right? I've never seen a witness come to court and have 2 lawyers standing with him. We object to it all the time. But, I mean, this is how much of a criminal he is. He had 2 lawyers standing with him all the time to try to protect his rights. And he don't remember anything now. Like, he don't remember,
Yeah. So what? Police are defunded too much. If they had more funds, maybe they could do more racist actions like this. You know what I mean?
Of course, he don't recall nothing. You got to bring the police reports to him and say, that's your signature. Did you do this? But he don't remember anything, of course. Selectively, he don't remember anything.
What's wrong with backing the blue? Man, I don't even know where to fucking begin, dude. I don't even know where to fucking begin. Holy shit. What's wrong with backing the blue? Public perceptions. Scarcella stated in 2018, I've done absolutely nothing wrong. I stand by my cases 100%. He has not faced any legal repercussions since retiring in 1999. In reviewing his cases, the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office has not charged Scarcella with breaking any laws during his NYPD service. I wonder what's wrong with backing the blue. 20 convictions overturned. 20 innocent lives were stolen as a consequence of this dude's fucking piece of shit actions. Okay? And yet, no laws were violated in that process. And it's true, no laws were probably violated because the laws are designed in a way to fuck over poor people, broke people, marginalized people. That's their fucking job. That's why if you back the blue, you're a fucking idiot. Okay? Even if Scarcella had, as a former prosecutor explained, he would not face legal charges because the statute of limitations is expired on his investigations. Although his 18 overturned cases have cost the state more than $53 million in legal damages, not including years of staff costs, Scarcella continues to receive his NYPD pension as state law prevents him from being stripped of it. Michael Palladino, president of the Detectives Endowment Association, has defended Scarcella as a political scapegoat of those with a desire to rewrite history. No, I do not think it's possible to fucking be a cop and change the system from within. No, I do not.